Oje yogi and let's do the 4 limitless contemplations. May all beings have happiness and create the causes of happiness. May they all be free from suffering and creating the causes of suffering. May they find that noble happiness which can never be tainted by suffering. May they attain universal impartial compassion, free of worldly bias towards friends and enemies. Sem jendamje dewatang deweju tangju paju chik. Dungal tang, dungal chichu tang drawaju chik, dungal mepe dewa tampa tang mindrawaju chik, nerin chak tang ni tang drawe tang nom chimbola ne paju chik. So good evening for all of you who are not having load shedding tonight. I'm happy. And we're going to continue tonight with that meditation, non-meditation, contemplation, and pondering. So this is part 4 of the series, and you can go back for whatever you really want in it. I'll probably do this time and next time, but next week we will have a session, and the week after for the Jewish holidays we won't. So in 2 weeks' time we won't, but next week we will definitely have a session. So I want to start with the story of the thorn bush, which is a very important story. Once there was a Gautama monk who was meditating in a cave with a thorn bush at its entrance. Every time he came out of the cave, the thorn bush tore into his robe and his body. And he thought, oh, I should really cut down that thorn bush, but maybe I'll die even before I come back in. And I need to practice, so never mind. Later, as he was entering his cave, the thorn bush tore his robe again, and he thought, and himself, and he thought, I really have to cut down that bush, but I must get on with my practice. What if I die soon and my practice is not complete? I'll get to it later. Anyway, this happened again and again over the course of time, and he became an accomplished siddha with torn robes, okay? And the thorn bush became a great thorn bush and was always included in the stories of this great siddha. Now, for me, there are 2 lessons in the story of the thorn bush. First of all, we all have thorns in our side, all the pricks of life, all the time, okay, thorns. And we spend so much more time getting rid of them than focusing on uniting with our true natures, which would probably help us to be able to deal with them. The monk made his definitive choice and accomplished so much spiritually. Okay, so it's important when the thorns are there that you actually, somebody texted me today and said, I texted this guy and I said, how are you? We haven't seen you for a long time. And he texts back, I'm not really anything that should be spoken about. In other words, I really have got nothing to say and nothing to do. And I'm really fed up. And I said, what's the problem? And he said, well, the whole world, I've looked at the whole world. It's selfish. People are selfish. People are into themselves. And there's no point in practicing anymore. I went, oh dear, okay, oh dear, because that's exactly when you should practice, when the thorn bush is there, okay? But the second point about the story is, if we go to a higher view beyond the thorns of our lives, then maybe quickly cutting down the thorn bush or replanting it if we feel for the thorn bush, without leaving our intrinsic awareness of the practice, then actually cutting the thorns in life becomes the practice. Now, that's the whole point that I'm trying to make with all these things, that everything in daily life, and that's what I said last time, what Dajjal Rinpoche said, what Dilgo Khyentse Rinpoche said, everything in your daily life becomes the practice in non-meditation, when you're not doing it specifically sitting and placing your mind in a particular place. And if we think about it, with the thorn bushes in our lives, we're all in the circumstances we need to be in. How many times have you thought, why am I in this situation? What is happening to me? Why do I have to be here? It's not fair. Look at what's happening to me. But we're all in the circumstances that we really need to be in. And these are the circumstances we created, both individually and collectively. I mean, we're busy creating karma now collectively, if you look around the world. Okay. And so how we use them and how we view them is important. Because instead of saying, why am I in this situation? What am I doing in this situation? It's not fair. Enough is enough. I don't want to be here. Or like this guy said, I don't want to be here anymore and I don't want to practice. I thought, that's really pathetic. And I said to somebody else today, how many more of these incarnations do you want to have? So she said, absolutely no more. I said, then get to the point. Start seeing your life from that absolute intrinsic awareness point of view. And then these things will cease as you see it from that point of view, not as you deal with it and make it like you want to be and fixate when it isn't what you want to be. Or there's Eugene. You know, maybe when you're in that situation, you can really change things for yourself and change the way you see them. Good evening, Eugene. It's nice to see you. So with that story of the thorn bush, it's really important for all of you, because it's time that we saw that we create all our circumstances and that they're perfect for us, even when they're horrible. Those are the circumstances that make us look in the mirror and change everything, which is so important. Now, going back to these 4 practices of meditation, non-meditation, contemplation, and pondering, all of them, and this is what you'll see in the end, when I was trying to separate them all so that I could give them to you each one at a time, they ran together. And I thought, that's so funny. You know, I keep on going there and there and there and there, because all of them, whether you do formal meditation, informal meditation, are all for the purpose of returning to our primordial state, pure, luminous awareness, Rigpa. It's the purpose of our life and it's the purpose of our practice. And when we're able to surrender to that, then everything starts working out through us. We don't have to do it. But up to now, we've been enveloped in all the false beliefs and the deluded habits, okay, all the time. We are pathetic slave to our thoughts and our life situations. And all these different types of meditation, all of them mean becoming familiar. Now, this is my main point for tonight. Becoming familiar with the state of resting. None of us know how to rest. Okay, resting in the primordial, uncontrived nature through being spontaneously, naturally, constantly aware without distraction and without clinging. Can I read that sentence again? Okay, let me say it again. All types of meditation, non-meditation too, because non-meditation is the Dzogchen way. Non-meditation and contemplation are not formal meditations, but until you really are in touch with your primordial awareness, you need to do a little bit of formal meditation. And Eric has obviously got load shedding, so that's why he can't argue with me tonight. But let me read that sentence again. all types of meditation, whatever you do, non-meditation, contemplation, all of them mean becoming familiar with the state of resting in the primordially uncontrived nature. Uncontrived is one of the things that we really have to learn, one of the words, because uncontrived means with no intervention. Uncontrived means as it is. So to go back into the uncontrived nature through being spontaneously, naturally, constantly aware without distraction and without clinging. Now you could be eating a meal and you could introduce that non-meditation. And you could be talking to someone and you really should introduce that non-meditation. Because when I look at people, a lot of times I can see we're not in touch with each other. Sometimes the person is there, but I can see their mind wandering off. That is not the state of resting in your primordial awareness. That is not the state. Because if you are not, and people so much, what can I say, so much media attention and, and advertising in this modern, go, be mindful, come to the present tense, don't look in the past, don't look in the future, come to the present. But people have really got to be wary of that, because a lot of people are hanging on to the present, clinging it, fixating. So they think, I'm not doing something in the past and I'm not planning the future, but I'm clinging to the present. That's just as bad. You have got to be constantly aware with everything in all your conversations with people, your telephone calls, your texting, whatever activity you are doing, you have got to be fully aware. Like I love Pammy's text. So she says to me, what's only going on in Germany? She said the prices of everything are going up. I don't know if we're going to have heating. We're gonna also have no electricity. We have to choose. Are we going to cook or are we going to heat our homes? I don't know what's going on. And so I replied to, especially saying, well, we've got load shedding. We've got stage 6 load shedding. So we're having about 8 or 9 hours a day. And I said something like, do your practice. Stop worrying about whether next week you're going to have enough money because all the prices are up, or you're not going to have enough electricity, or you're not going to have enough warmth. That's living into the future. Just do what you can now. And I think sometimes when we went through, having the water cut off for most of the weekend, I think it was last weekend or whatever the case is, it really, really makes you totally and utterly aware of the preciousness of water. When you turn a tap on, you forget. If you're brushing your teeth and you've got all the toothpaste, then you haven't got anything to clean your mouth with and clean your hands with and clean the toothbrush with. And if you pour bought distilled water on it, you're aware that you're wasting a lot of water doing it, and so on and so forth. So it actually teaches you, these negative things teach you. In Germany, where they've always been able to make a plan, make some kind of plan because their minds are always working with a plan. I think that the Germanic people are going to have to take a long, hard look now that they haven't got enough electricity and gas and all of those kind of things. And I think collectively, if there can be a softening, you two Germanic guys might want to argue with me, but if there can be a softening and a relationship with your emotional self, I think that it will really serve its purpose. So what we're looking at in all these things is that when we do that, this means intently watching the undercurrent of your wandering thought. But you can't intensely, what we're learning in all of this is that intense watching is in the beginning. But once you have seen and understood and are in touch with your primordial awareness, with all of that, then you don't have to be intensely watching, because intensely watching is where you place the mind. Resting, just resting, means the mind just is what it is. You're not thinking, now I'm going to do this. Now I must watch that. I must watch the thoughts. It's just resting where you are. And so what Dajjal Rinpoche says is this. He says, we need to gain certainty in this luminous awareness. He says, you need to gain certainty in it. It's the most fantastic thing, this luminous awareness. Absolutely fantastic. Because you look at something and you see it through your impure perception, and then you look again and you see it through your pure perception, and it's suddenly luminous. Actually, everything is luminous. And my practice that I do is to actually make me luminously aware, so that I'm looking at things and suddenly you see things. I remember when I used to do the chore practice when I was in India, and on the cover of the chore practice, there's a picture of Padampa Sanjay, who was the first practitioner before he passed it on. And the one day I was going to start the practice, and the picture was alive and bright on the cover. I caught such a fright. It like came out of the cover. Now what happened was the picture didn't come out of the cover, but my perception saw it in its luminous state. Now that's what happens to you when you've got that luminous awareness, which you cultivate in the practice. Then it starts shining. You just notice little things in the corner. You notice things. You begin to relate to things. You're alive. You're aware. You're luminous. And so Dajjal Rinpoche says this: we need to gain certainty in the luminous awareness. And if you meditate, he says, with a strong, joyful endeavor, a strong, joyful endeavor. Okay, so important. A strong, joyful endeavor. Signs will appear, signs will appear that you have become used to, conditioned, used to staying in your own nature. Now we're not used to it. We're used to staying in Sem, the human intellectual part, which decides things, which fixates on things, which works things out, which plans things. We're not used to staying in your own nature. That's maybe the most important thing he says. And then we ask, what does it mean, staying in your own nature? How is it when we are luminously aware? Then what happens when you are luminously aware is the fierce, tight clinging to everything gradually loosens. And the obsession, he uses this word, the obsession with happiness and suffering and hope and fears will weaken. So slowly, as you are able to do these practices, all those things you did with your ordinary human mind they start weakening and they start loosening. And the grip, you don't have a grip on it anymore. That's what happens when you get used to your true nature. You can challenge me on this, I have no problem, but I'm just telling you what he says. He says devotion to the teacher and trust in the Dharma grows. And we start developing one taste about things, one taste. which is absolutely amazing. One taste means it doesn't matter if today's a happy day, if it's a lousy day, if your boss shouted at you, if you got praise, if you're achieving what you want, if you're not achieving what you want, it's one taste. And I've seen these masters put one taste into practice because it doesn't matter. I know with Lama Yeshe that I'm so close and that he really has one taste. If you know that he's really sick and you say to him, how are you today? He will say, if my mind is good, I'm good. I mean, he'll always answer like that and mean it. I mean, he was lying in bed and he was really nearly dying in the hospital the last time. I said, what was that like for you? He says, what do you mean? I said, how was it for you when you were lying in the hospital and you thought your life may? He said, I just focused on taking all the pain and all the suffering and all the sickness of everybody around me into me, and I even forgot I was sick. It's called one taste, doesn't matter. If you're in that situation, you take it on. And then Dajjal Rinpoche says, our eyes shine with vitality. Our eyes shine with vitality. Now, if you look at people, when their eyes are dull, I told you that other story of Tulku Urchin's root guru. If your eyes are not sheen, if they don't have a sheen, you're not in touch with your true nature. There's got to be a joy, an enthusiasm, something in your eyes that intuitive things start coming through, and our whole life starts to operate from a source beyond our human conditioned intellectual limited minds. We just know things. We are awake after a lifetime of sleeping. Like, you know, I was walking in the, wasn't walking, I was actually rushing. I was very late and I had to do my grocery shopping and I was running very late and I had appointments like very soon. So I was literally in the supermarket, like not running up the aisles, but walking very, very, very quickly, plopping things in as quickly as I possibly could, you know. And there was this woman that I kept meeting. She was going in the opposite direction. I was coming in that direction, and I kept bumping her. So first she asked me about something in my trolley, which I hardly had time to explain. And then I went off. And the next time I came up the aisle and she was there, she was watching me. And I looked at her and she said to me, you know, you've got a lot of energy. And, you know, in that moment, I suddenly noticed, which I hadn't, that there was a stick, you know, those sticks that you put onto your arm. So she obviously had crutches and everything, was holding onto the trolley for dear life and really walking very slowly. And in that moment, I didn't unfortunately have time, otherwise I would have stopped and talked to her and communicated with her. But all I did was put my hand down her arm like that, you know. But what I was aware of was that from where she was coming, she was thinking to herself, you're so lucky because you've got all that energy and I haven't. And I could feel that in my being, in that quick interaction, which I didn't even have time to follow through. I just touched her on the arm and then went on. But the point is, wherever you are, if your practice and your meditation and your non-meditation and everything you are doing is not with the intrinsic awareness, with your shining eyes, where people start being drawn to you, they see your light and they're drawn to you, then you're not getting it right. Change your practice, change your outlook. Start saying, how can I get used to being in my true nature, in my intrinsic awareness? It's no use if you're doing ages and ages of deity practices, Vajrayana, and all sorts of things, and you feel dead, and you're not putting enthusiasm in, and you're not shining light, and you're not changing as you get up. Now, after we've done this meditation, we're going to go back to the first category of meditation, and I'm going to give you Tulku Urgent's instructions, and hopefully something will ring true to you. But does anybody want to say anything or comment? Anything or ask on what I've just said? Anything you want to. Because this is so important. Otherwise, what are we doing? What are we doing Buddhism for? What are we working towards? Why are we doing this? Why are we letting people put us down? Why are people saying, I can't practice because other people are selfish? What's that got to do with it? Then you should practice more if other people are selfish. Because you should practice and you should put your light out into the world if people are negative and they can't see things as they should. Anybody have anything they want to say? Sure. I don't mind if you're quiet, as long as you're absorbing, and at least I can see quite a few of your faces. But if anybody needs to say anything, please, it doesn't matter how basic it is, just say it. Because after these sessions, I want you to have a beautiful enthusiasm and an inspiration and a feeling that you can take the practice and go out into this world which is really going through such degeneration at the moment. Every time you turn on the television, there's another disaster somewhere. And you've got to ask yourself, what are these earthly disasters? They're collective consciousness that has failed somewhere along the line.
Any,
yes, please.
Can I ask about the steps of dependent arising? So, you know, you get to that point where there's contact and you have an opinion on the consciousness or the assessment of whatever it is that's arising.
Okay.
And you either like it, you're neutral, or you dislike it. So does that mean that you're neutral about things at all times, or?
Not at all, because neutral for me is, I can't stand neutral. I'd rather have an ugly person than a neutral person. Because if you look at the psychology of neutral people, they are people who won't let on to anybody what they feel. So they look like they're neutral. I don't really believe anybody is neutral. I think, you see, when you go on the wheel of life and you go into all the stages of the wheel of life, okay, there's got to come the point where you change suddenly. Suddenly, you get a vision of your life and you go, I don't want to go round this wheel of life another time. I want to get off it. I want to fly and really go to another plane. I'm sick and tired of this repetition. This is how you behave. This is what you put out. These were your feelings. These were your emotions. These were your karmic imprints. And now they're going into the next life. And you just get catapulted. I was shouting at somebody today. I said to this person, you've got so much potential. You understand your nature of mind, but you won't go to it. And I said, and you keep saying, unless this is perfect and unless this is perfect, you won't go. Go on the wheel of life again. Wow, it's nice to see you. You're going to go on the wheel of life again and go round that wheel of life again. It's so crazy. So what happens is you come to a point, Ross, if you look at all the links on the wheel of life, where you're going to change absolutely everything. And that's why once you are in touch, once, as Dajjal Rinpoche says, if you become used to your nature of mind, you start to have a different perspective. It's not good, it's not bad, and it's definitely not neutral. It's actually seeing things in their pure form and not being affected by them, not being affected at all. And so that you can change and get off the wheel of life and hopefully have, if you do come in for an incarnation, let it be an incarnation of your choice, because you come to serve people, not because of anything other reason. Nikki, it's so nice that you're there. I'm pleased you're there. Anyway, after all of this that we've done, let's just do a little meditation, and then we will go on to Tulku Urgent's beautiful instructions that he gives. So I want you all to get into your meditation posture, and then I want you to do those 9 breaths, which are really important. So remember, you take your finger, your right finger to your left nostril, you breathe in and out through the left nostril. 3 of those, and then 3 on the other side, and then 3 through your nostril. I'm a bit blocked, so I can't do it very well, but you all do it. So in through the one nostril, out through the other, cleansing all your passages and coming to this present moment and being totally present. And empty the lungs. And then fill them again with your exhalations. And then rest easy. And let's just do very, very short refuge. For the refuge, we're abiding in the nature of our minds. That's our refuge. So we say we abide in the nature of mind that is our refuge. And then we do the Bodhisattva Bodhicitta vow. We recognize the spontaneous expression of mind's nature as fulfillment of the Bodhisattva vow. So in other words, once you are in touch with your nature, automatically you do it for the sake of all sentient beings. And that's your Bodhicitta vow. So let's just do a little meditation from Longchenpa's precise instruction. He says, first, in formal meditation, you hang loosely. Do you know how to hang loosely? Relaxed, with open, natural clarity. You do not label or describe your sensory perception. In that way, no attachment can arise. With open cognition of the form in the eye, the sound in the ear, the taste on the tongue, the sensation in the body, and the plethora of positive and negative thoughts in the mind. The 6 varieties of your senses are neither concretized nor substantial in any way, and you know pure presence. You do not follow or run after any object, but abiding in your luminous, translucent perceptivity, experience all the forms coming from your mind without hope or fear. Don't modify them. Don't have any perceptions of them. No good bad or neutral. Don't reject any appearance. Whatever arises is just freed and released by itself. Just sitting in this pure presence with no object and subject. And whatever appears in informal contemplation, the gap between your meditation sessions should be understood to be like one of the 8 metaphors of magical illusion, like a dream, like a rainbow, like an echo. And so you are released from desire, hatred, and all emotional affliction. Whatever you're going through, just let it come and let it go. Without when positive or negative mental display arises, knowing that it's not substantial, it's not permanent, neither fixate upon it nor reject it. It is surely true that as for us all, thoughts run continuously one after the other, like ripples on a pond. And if each thought is to be caught and then rejected, one after the other, then even though you practice for an eon, you will not eradicate them all. Whatever thoughts arise, you let them arise. And when they have arisen, you do not cling to them, but let them disappear. Just as if you draw in water, you draw a line in water, it vanishes the moment after you draw it. Let thoughts disappear immediately into their own pure presence. Okay, now we're going to go to Tulku Urgent Rinpoche. We will go to each one, back to each one, to the meditation, the non-meditation, but tonight let's do the meditation. And let me tell you that Tulku Urgent Rinpoche, for me, is the most wonderful teacher. Whatever I don't understand, he always explains, and every day I give gratitude to him for his wonderful explanations of everything. And so in his beautiful book, The Vajra Heart Revisited, there is a chapter from the chapter of shamatha and vipassana, which is calm abiding and looking into the mind in the Dzogchen way. So that's what he's teaching here. So we're going to give you a little background and then I'll get you back into meditation. Okay. He says, in all the 9 vehicles that there are, from right at the bottom, going right up to the highest vehicles, that shamatha and vipassana, that's calm abiding and examining the mind, are used. They're the same words in every single level of the practice, but a different meaning that becomes more profound with each successive vehicle. So the shamatha and the vipassana, I'm sorry Eric isn't here because he really wants this, but I'm sure you'll get you'll get the recording. When you look going right up like that, each one, it becomes more profound. All of them have got shamatha and vipassana, looking into the mind and calm abiding. But they go to a higher and higher and higher level, okay, and more profound with each successive vehicle. And you accomplish the state of realization of a Buddha through the unity of shamatha and vipassana. Those two have got to be unified if you want to get anywhere. And he says at the Ati Yoga level, right at the top of all the vehicles, we have what is called extraordinary shamatha and vipassana. And that's what I want to teach you tonight, because a lot of you have done a lot of this before. So I think it's really, really important. Okay. And he says when he's talking about shamatha, there are two types of shamatha. One, conceptual shamatha. Two, non-conceptual shamatha, which is the practice, what I've just told you about, of naturally resting in awareness. Do you know how to naturally rest in awareness? Most of us don't. Okay? Because we might do it for a second. We're aware, and then we're off on a thought, on a tangent, all the time. We change all the time. Okay? So he says, there are two practices that we have got in the shamatha and the vipassana when you do it at the top level. One is called chore, okay? And one is called nalbab. Chore and nalbab. Now, please, everybody, write those two words down so that you can actually understand them. Shorshuk, S-O-R-S-H-U-G, and nalbab, N-A-L-B-A-B, so that you've got them, because they really do change things a lot. And I love what he says. Shorshuk is the practice of sustaining freshness. Sustaining freshness. Now that's so important in all your practices, that it's fresh. Okay? Right, Martin? It's got to be fresh all the time. So shorshuk is the practice of sustaining freshness. Why do you need freshness? If you look at it, why do you need freshness? You need freshness because if you keep on looking into the mind, you can't, it's not fresh anymore. You've got to stop, and then you've got to do the nalbab, which is resting, and then you can go on. It's so important that you refresh your practice all the time. It must go to a different level all the time when you are getting into your extraordinary nature of mind. Okay, so what happens is nalbab is shamatha without support. And the purpose of it, now listen carefully, the purpose of sitting in shamatha, in calm abiding, is for the purpose of reviving from tiredness after you've examined the mind. So we take a rest. Now, I always tell you that Akon Rinpoche used to say all the time, you go on holiday and you don't rest your minds. When do we rest our minds? Someone was telling me today that in the early hours of the morning, the demon in this person's life starts attacking at about 4 o'clock in the morning, starts attacking. And the thing is, when do we rest our minds? And remember, when you rest, you don't rest and go into an unaware sleep. You rest with awareness. Just means your mind isn't busy. It's resting, but you're fully aware. If you're resting and you're in a deep sleep, that's not it. That nalbab is resting the mind from putting it all over, from fixating, from dissecting, from doing all of that. That is what resting is. So he says, ordinary shamatha alone can't give you enlightenment. If you've got this wonderful calm mind, that's very, very nice, but unless you look into it and understand it and realize it, it's of no value at all. so you can't get enlightened. Extraordinary shamatha is resting in the stillness, free from conceptual thinking. And this has to be combined, he said, with the recognition of that which is vipassana. We'll practice it, where you look at what is the mind all about, okay? He says this unity is also called the unity of awareness and emptiness. There's a huge difference, he says, in the quality of shamatha and vipassana in the highest vehicle. Because here, using nalbab, which is resting the mind, and shoshuk, which is refreshing the mind, sustaining the freshness, that's where you begin to know, oh, Rigpa, what does that feel like? It's not a fabrication, it's a real, definitive experience. And we examine the coming and the staying and the going of mind. And then when you examine it, you know, there's nothing tangible. You can't say, this is my mind, this thick thing is my mind, this is my mind. You can't see anything when you examine the mind. There's nothing tangible. There's nothing permanent. There's nothing solid. And that's how you start saying, funny, then it must be emptiness. But you've got to get there by actually really sustaining that freshness and looking and really being interested in what you are doing, but allowing the mind to actually experience that for us. You just reflect on it and you know for sure that everything is empty and devoid of a self. You are there because your mother gave birth to you. This watch is here because some watchmaker went and got all sorts of things and put this watch together. It's not just here, it's not a thing. It's because it's got machinery in it, hands, a strap, so it becomes a watch. But everything, the environment, whatever you're looking at, is only there because of that, because of that, because of that. So when we look at a thought, like we're looking at our angry mind, we're looking at that angry thought. We're so mad because this person at work insulted me today, or this person didn't look after me, or this person ignored me, or this happened to me. And then when we allow it, we see it's so funny. That I thought was so tangible, in 1 minute, it's just dissolved because it never had a self-entity. Now that's what you're training your mind, because once you can train your mind, you can repeat, don't wander, don't be distracted, but you become skilled, says Tulku Urgent, in remaining in naturalness. We just don't know what naturalness is. We only know what contrivedness is. If we go into a room, do we ever think to ourselves, let it just be as it is? No, we think, that person in the corner is very powerful, I better watch him. This person is somebody that comes out with things, I better do this or this. This is someone I could do. We've done a whole analysis. We never come into a place, and we just are allowing that awareness to meander wherever it's got to go without losing it, and it will help you to be natural. We only know how to rest in contrivedness, not in naturalness. This is what Tulku Urgent's big thing is. He says in Vipassana, we're going to do it now. We establish the past is gone, the future hasn't arrived, and that you are the one creating the thoughts. But there's no form, there's no color, there's no shape, there's nothing actually to see. He says, rest evenly in that. He said, not seeing is the supreme sight. Not finding is the supreme find. So if you go on a treasure hunt and you don't find anything, Well done. Stop looking for things. Stop looking for solutions. Stop looking to make your life perfect. Stop looking to have the perfect meditation. There is nothing as meditation. There's nothing such as meditation. It doesn't exist. There's only your nature of mind, and there's this human mind which keeps on intruding instead of letting the nature of mind take care of everything loosely. So are you ready to do the meditation with Tulku Urgent? Or do you want to ask me anything? Nothing concrete, no concrete mind, he says, is your most eminent discovery. Do you think your mind is concrete? Do you think it's solid? Do you think it's a thing? She's smiling, Shivani. She thought it was a thing, but now she's changing her mind. You ready? Okay. I'm giving you his instructions now, okay? So, he says, thus, on a comfortable seat, place your body however it feels at ease. However it feels at ease. If you can be at ease in a bodhisattva posture, that's great. But don't kill yourself to be there. Don't hurt yourself to be there. Remain still, silent, without controlling your breath, and let your speech rest. No controlling or contriving the flow of your breath. It's uncontriving. And then he says, just let go of all your mind's thoughts, good, evil, or indifferent. Just let them be. And rest in naturalness. Naturalness. Rest in naturalness. What does naturalness mean? It means resting without placing the mind. Do not boss your mind into being placed somewhere. Leave it. Rest in naturalness. If the mind is placed, it is not in a state of naturalness. In ordinary shamatha, there is no naturalness because the mind is placed in a peaceful state. Don't do that. Let the three doors of your body, speech, and mind rest or remain as they naturally in the ground itself. We practice abandoning the body, speech, and mind within the state of primordial purity. So you absolutely let go. You absolutely let be. You don't place the mind. You just rest naturally. And he says, like water clears when left unstirred, by freely leaving your three doors, your body, speech, and mind, unaltered in their basic nature, your mind will remain still. Without resting the three doors in inactivity, it's like stirring up muddy water. We need unfabricated stillness. if you only remain in the sitting posture of shamatha, you won't develop the strength of vipassana, which means clear seeing where you engage in activity. Otherwise, you can't develop strength. So, first of all, the chore shak, first of all, the null bug, resting in naturalness. So just allow the mind to rest. And then we're going to do some vipassana exercises, and then we're going to sustain the freshness with the chore shak, which means you maintain that awareness through the activities to develop the strength. So let's just do a few of the vipassana exercises, and then I'll talk you through, because you're allowed to move, like you're allowed to move your head, as long as you don't lose awareness. And then we're going to move the arms if you want to. If you do Tai Chi, you don't have to sit like a god, okay? You are relaxing in a natural state. So let's do a little bit of vipassana, then we'll rest, and then we'll refresh. So ask yourself, where is my mind? What's its shape? Does it have a color? Have a look. Really look deeply at your mind. If it's got a shape, if it's got a color, if it's solid, where it is. And come to your own conclusion. Now watch your thoughts. Where do they come from? Have they got a beginning? Have they got an end? What is their nature? Where do they dissolve? And my emotions, where do my emotions arise? Do they have a nature? Do they have a color? Into what do they dissolve? Now you're going to do this at home for a much longer period, but right here, you're going to sustain the freshness. You've asked the questions, and then you're going to rest. So from the state of sitting, you keep the state of resting in naturalness, but you move your eyes around in various gazes. You can look up, you can look down. Peaceful, more peaceful is when you look up. More wrathful is down. And you can move your arms and your legs if you wish to, but don't move from the state of naturalness. Just allow your legs to move any way they want. Stretch them, but don't lose that absolute naturalness, being in the nature of mind. You can even walk, says Tulku Urgent. You can do whatever you want. You can allow whatever you want with your hands. Just don't you lose that pure awareness. And with your voice, you could say different things. If you want to sing, sing. If you want to do a mantra, do a mantra. Just don't lose that perfect state. If you want to speak words, speak them. In this way, mingle the movements of body, speech, and mind with the practice. In ordinary shamatha, if you move, your attention is often distracted and your stillness is lost. But in a state of awareness, in extraordinary shamatha and vipassana, your state remains all the time. The actions sustain the freshness of your meditation. You mingle sustaining freshness, awareness with your daily life. Never move away from your natural state. So Ross, if you want to stroke your dogs, you don't move that awareness. You stroke them in total awareness and right back to your meditation. Apply this all and let the brightness, the sharpness of awareness increase. Don't let fixation take over. That ruins us. Move spontaneously like Tai Chi, acting out whatever comes to mind. No restrictions. Never move away from the awareness. Naturalness means the unfabricated, the real object, and your mind is spontaneously free. It has zantal, which means clarity. Don't get carried away during the activities. The different emotions, the poisons cause no harm if we simply rest in a state of emptiness, natural. And when you are in rigpa, whatever appears in your mind is like a reflection in the mirror. The mirror and the reflection are not apart, not different, nothing tangible. It appears, but it is not tangible. While being empty, it is still visible. When you feel, he says, delighted, depressed, attached, angry, just rest in unfabricated naturalness, a state of empty awareness. Everything is liberated. The clarity becomes greater. Like the more feelings you have, you add firewood to the fire. It flares up, but there is no harm to your view of absolute state of awareness, natural, fresh, rest, rest. Well, that is Tulku Urchin's beautiful instructions. Did you like them? I mean, isn't it wonderful if you can keep in that beautiful sustained state? Like my knees are really getting sore. So in that practice, you can just stretch your legs out a little bit, resting the body without moving the naturalness, the awareness, bright, shining. What do you think? Is it too revolutionary for you? If it is, then go back to the ordinary shamatha and vipassana. I don't mind asking yourself the question, what is the mind? Where is it? Does it have a color? I mean, I did that for years, okay? I can't say to you, I really came to a conclusion. I didn't really. But now I really do come to the conclusion that things do not have a self-identity, they are not solid. And when I'm depressed or when I've got a problem or whatever, I really can sustain it, allowing it to be knowing that tomorrow it'll all be over. Pammy, you are thinking. Now, what are you thinking? Tell me. I want to know.
I was thinking that
Yes.
you're telling us this years and years, this teaching, and as soon as something difficult comes, I forget all about it. So it means it's not deep enough. It doesn't matter how hard I try to get it deep, deep, deep. One obstacle and I'm out.
You see, I love what you're saying, because you know why? You know why I love what you're saying? Because that's our problem. Like we started off in the West, everything's a competition. You know, it's like, I've got to get it into my mind. Wrong. Big cross. Don't get it in your mind. It already is in your mind. Just surrender, and there it will be, fresh and alive. And in your interactions with people, you'll see what happens to you. You're suddenly totally aware and totally bright and totally sheen and totally seeing things as they really are. You don't have to do anything. That's the principle. It's in the doing that we're using the ordinary human mind. And what he's saying here is so fresh to me. It's just absolutely exquisite. I can remember sitting, you know, at courses that I did at Sammy Ling and all those places. You had to sit for about 5 hours with your legs, with your knees. And I used to have cramps in my legs and I used to feel absolutely exhausted. Why should you do that? As long as you are totally aware and totally aware that things around you are not solid, they're changing, they're not solid, they're not permanent, they're not you, they're not anything, then you can question yourself. This anger that I've got, this madness that I've got, this anger, let me look at it. And then you ask, what is this anger? Does it have a color? Does it have a shape? Is it me? Again, in the beginning, it's not the naturalness. You have to develop this over time because you begin to realize that nothing has a self. It's all changing all the time. And so you realize that, and so you can let it be. Let it be. I'm angry in this moment. It's going to change in a minute. And I find that my moods change so quickly. They go away so quickly. I can't even remember what I was sad about yesterday. Mark, did you want to say something that you came back on track?
Yeah, I think I can follow. And funny enough, yesterday I had a bit of a glimpse. I was, because of loud shedding, I was just sitting somewhere and non-meditating or whatever I did, I don't know. and my wife was in the kitchen and she was listening to some German TV, but I couldn't hear it properly. Actually, what I heard was like blah 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 blah. You know, like you hear that something is being said, but I couldn't hear the contents. And then it just dawned on me that, you know, not hearing that is just it's actually nothing. If somebody now came and said, "Listen, this German news reporter says, Martin, you're an idiot," why would I get agitated now if I don't know about it? And it doesn't agitate me, right? Because I hear blah, 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 blah. So now then somebody comes and says, you know, what he actually says is, Martin, you are whatever, you're lovely, you're an idiot or whatever. And now I get attached to it or I get averse to it. So yeah, it was just a bit of a glimpse of, you know, if I leave it as it is, then it's just noise, just sound. It's just, you know.
And that is what most things are. Most of these masters, when they come into a room, they have blah, 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 people talking. And, it is all blah, 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 blah. I wonder how many statements we make in a day that are really significant,
Yeah.
And I mean, on television, you get such a distorted version of everything, and it's so fascinating. I was looking at the Queen. I mean, I was fascinated with the history of the UK. I was fascinated. Every time I had spare time yesterday, I was onto that funeral again, because I was so fascinated with all those people in uniforms and all the actual, what they went to, the trouble that they went to, for something like this. And then eventually I was just looking at this, and eventually they go, and now she will be laid to rest in her final resting place. Okay. And I said, Queen Elizabeth, please don't rest. You don't need to, anymore. And I just thought to myself, this is what people say. So now God takes her to her resting place. No responsibility of you, but God takes you to your resting place. And I mean, does that poor body have to rest? It's dead. Does your being have to rest? It's got to go to, and it doesn't need to rest because it doesn't need any more physical rest. I just listened to the blah, 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 blah of everything, that happened, and was fascinated with it all. I really was. I was absolutely intrigued with the whole thing. But there's so many things there. There are so many not truths, not things that are really as they are. It's just people's fantasy. That's what our human mind is doing all the time. It's fantasizing about things. This is solid. This problem I've got is never going to go away. I'm never going to have this. This is this, this is that, this is that. We take the mind, we put it there, we analyze it, we distort it. We have to stop. We have to let a greater part of us take it all over and really, really help us through this. Kim, what you were thinking, a lot of things. Tell me what you were thinking.
I was just distracted away from my awareness.
Why were you distracted?
There was just things going on outside.
Okay, so you allowed, but you see, if things are going on outside, then you have to take your awareness and allow them to go there without distraction. That's the whole thing. You see, this is what we do with our life. We break what we're doing with distraction. And that's what Tulku Urchin is really wanting when he says Zankal means clarity. Don't get carried away with your activities. If you are doing the meditation and something else is going on there, you can fully give your attention to it, but you're fully aware that you're giving your attention to it. And when you're finished, you can come back to that. That is what our training is about. And remembering also that once the nature of mind takes over your life, then kind things happen through you, because it only knows to help and serve and, not to have an ego and things like that. So when you allow that, when you are in touch with that Rigpa, it works through you, which is such an amazing thing. Am I keeping you up, Joss? He just had a big yawn. Okay. Anyone else want to say anything? So you don't lose. You can sustain the freshness, the chore shook, by activities with pleasure, as long as you don't lose the mind. And he says, do Tai Chi activities, you know, stretch, move your eyes to an upward gaze or a downward gaze, whatever you want. He says you just allow yourself to move and your voice to move. It's so different to what we are normally taught in meditation, but I find it just beautiful. Because I find, you know, my best insights are like when I'm practicing, like I might be doing even whatever, I might be doing a guru yoga practice, and an insight plops in. And sometimes I just stop the practice for a minute and I just allow the insight to come in and then go on. And that's not breaking the practice. That's allowing that naturalness to permeate whatever's happening with you. Yeah, Kati? Anyone else?
Yeah, Mel, I mean, I absolutely love this. I mean, you know, it works for me very, very well. Because there's I've been very interested in what's happening with the Queen, and but it's just pageantry. But
Yeah.
you know, I think that she did some really good work.
She did.
And I think she was really kind, and there's some signs that she was spiritually very special. And then some other people have their views, and I feel like I can just let it all be, just let it all, you know, let it all happen. And when I get a bit flustered, I just take a deep breath, and you know, and then I you know, ask those questions. What does my mind look like? And I can't define it as anything. And then I find that those questions make me relax into like the spaciousness that's just there. That's for me, when I do an examination, there's just space. And then I feel like I could just rest there and just be in that space. And I feel such joy and such freedom there. So I try to keep returning to that space throughout the day. And if I don't, I don't. If I do, I do. And it's
not a big deal. No, but it's important. And what you'll enjoy is next time, I will give you the non-meditation of uniting the three skies. That's a beautiful one with the space, external space, internal space, and secret space. And you'll love that. You'll really love that practice, which is a really nice practice. But whether you're doing meditation, non-meditation, contemplation, I want to give you also a few other things about the emotions, because some people can't let the emotions be in the beginning. So they still go in to look at it, but you train yourself to let yourself less and less go and pick it up and analyze it and fix it and decide what you're going to do about it. It's such a waste of time, because in the end, it takes care of itself. That's the whole thing. You know, everything takes care of itself. This electricity, this not, you know, choosing whether you want to cook or whether you want to warm yourself in winter, you know, these things. You've just got to let them be. Take a chill pill, but do it with awareness. That's the whole thing. That's what is lacking. People are not aware. And that's what we're training in this. And I can just see him. I often watch YouTubes of Tulku Urgyen Rinpoche. He'll give this over and over and over again. He keeps saying, sustain freshness, be natural, just be where you are. And you think, gosh, all these years of doing fancy practices, it's just a practice in the moment. You can all do it, really. And it's getting used to your nature of mind taking control rather than you taking control and not allowing the things to come through you. And that for me is more and more and more what we're looking at. So ponder, everybody. Let this drop. Let the penny drop. I think all those poor people who texted me, they'll all get the recording, because otherwise you've got to start again. I can't start again every time. It's too much stuff. But the thing is, I'm trying to give you from a lot of different sources, all these different practices, so that you can find something. You know, even if Marcel, if you go walking with friends or go walking on your own, you can really do the practices very beautifully when you're walking. You don't have to sit in a meditative posture and do the practice. You could do it walking, you could do it moving, you could do Tai Chi, you could do yoga, whatever you're doing, and you're still completely in naturalness and awareness. Fee, did you get something out of that?
Yes, very much so. Yes, I did, definitely. The only thing I have a challenge with is resting in that sort of naturalness when you're at work. I have moments where I catch myself, somebody will walk into the office and I'll immediately think, oh, this and that and that, and I have to actually stop myself. Literally, there are moments when I'm you know, lucky enough to be able to do that for, I don't know why, but most of the time there are all sorts of incoming things, information and people and emotions from other people and my own emotions, and sometimes it's a little difficult to just, you know, especially if you're having to deal with things and with people, and that's the challenge I find, you know, essentially. I do my best to.
That's the challenge of the practice. And that's what I learned from Tulku Urgyen Rinpoche, because really, that story I always told you, I'll finish off with it, but you know, he was in his 90s, and his meditation practice, he used to do, I think, Om Mani Padme Hum. So he used to be leaning, he was old as anything, and the monastery was running, and he used to lean over in his bed and go, Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum. Who knows where he was probably in the Pure Lands when he was doing it. And so one of his assistants really needed to know whether the statue needed to be put in that room or that room. And he came and he saw him sitting in his meditation, doing his mantras, and he thought, I can't disturb him to ask him where the statue must go. And he said it was the most incredible thing, because eventually the people were waiting. And so he came in the curtain, and without ever distracting himself, he was doing his mantras and everything, and he saw him, and he leaned over, completely aware of having him there. And the guy said, I'm so sorry, Master, to disturb you. And he said, like, what is it that you want? And he asked him the question. And he gave him the answer where the statue had to go. And then he went out of the room, the disciple. And just to see what happened when he went out of the room, he came and peeked in. And he was back in the exact situation, doing his mantra. Nothing had changed. He was able to take his awareness into the situation, what was needed, do what was needed, without one single bit of disturbance. And I remember him saying, you know, if you can't finish your practice before you go to work, he said, that's fine. Take it in your mind. Go to work, do all the things you have to do, and come home and finish it. You're still in that state of mind. Why? But you've got to be good for you to do it. You've got to really know your nature of mind. It's got to be a sheen to be able to leave the practice and continue your day, busy day, doing everything, and you're still in the practice. Now imagine you were doing Chen Rezi and you were developing compassion, and then you went to work. Shame, now he's come back. And then you went to work, and then you came back from work, and you were in that compassionate state still, and you finished.
But maybe it's a good thing, Mel. Maybe it's a good thing to do that, to start the day with a practice that you don't finish and carry it through the day and then come home and finish it.
Completely and totally. Shame, Eugene, you just came in just after I did the whole of Talk to Urgent stuff, which you would have loved. Get the recording, you would love it. So anyway, Shame, were you having trouble with your electricity?
No, I had to go quickly support a friend who got taken up in hospital, so I had to dash.
Oh, but did you keep your mind? Did you keep your awareness when you went?
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
Duh.
Then that's good, because people are bumping off and on with this electricity, so I thought you might also. Anyway, I'll answer anything anyone wants. Let's dedicate to all sentient beings, that all of us may know Rigpa, may know that awareness, may feel it in our hearts, and that it really pacifies all the people going through suffering. Through this merit, may we achieve all-seeing Buddhahood, and thereafter, once all harmful enemies have been defeated, may all beings be liberated from the ocean of existence, stirred by the waves of birth, old age, sickness, and death. Sonam die tamche zipane topne nepe dranam pamshene jeganachi balap dropaye sipe sole doa dro warsho.